Ukraine has initiated an urgent meeting of the UN Security Council and a special meeting of the OSCE Permanent Council following Russia's deadly attack on Kryvyi Rih. Joining me now to discuss the latest situation in Ukraine in terms of security, but also Tuesday's meetings and upcoming negotiations regarding a mineral deal is Tymofiy Mylovanov, president of the Kyiv School of Economics and former Ukrainian economy minister. Good evening and welcome to World News Tonight.
Good evening.
So, UN Security Council and the OSCE meeting. We've heard from Andriy Sybiha, who said will help to advance peace efforts and accountability. But we also heard his response on X. So let's take a look at that for a moment, shall we?
Russia must cease its terror against Ukrainian children and civilians, respond to US full ceasefire proposal, which Ukraine has accepted, and end the war.
So we've heard that, we've seen the meetings, but realistically, can the UN Security Council hold Russia accountable for what's been happening so far, especially now when we consider the movements of the US administration?
Well, even before that, the United Nations Security Council would not be able to hold Russia accountable because Russia has a veto power and it vetoes any kind of resolutions against Russia. So that is impossible. However, what the role is of the United Nations Security Council is to have a conversation about the topic and bring the world attention to the situation. Here specifically today, the issue is that Ukraine has accepted the ceasefire, but Russia continues to bombard, bomb, and hit Ukraine with drones, killing multiple civilians and children even every day, especially a recent horrendous attack on Kryvyi Rih, where 6 children were killed, over 24 wounded, 16 adults have been killed instantly, and many more are in very tough medical condition. The current position of the United States administration continues to be of the form that we do not challenge Russia at all while we're in negotiations with Russia. For example, that was recently given as an answer by National Economic Advisor Hassett about why President Trump didn't impose tariffs on Russia. So the US keeps the door open, but it looks like Russia is not doing anything to enter into this door. So we'll see what the US reaction in the future will be.
Which takes me to my next question. We've also heard during the UN Security Council from Tom Fletcher, the UN Undersecretary General for Humanitarian Affairs. Let's take a moment to listen to what he had to say.
Under international humanitarian law that this council is here to defend, parties to conflicts must protect civilians and civilian infrastructure. Indiscriminate attacks on civilians are strictly prohibited. There must be limits to how war is waged.
So we've heard from Mr. Fletcher. We've heard about the prohibition of targeting civilians, and yet there is evidence that Russia is actually trying to target civilians, as we've heard in our report earlier today. So what is the next move by the international community now, especially that we've heard from Russia saying that they're going to refrain from attacking civilians, and they go against their own words?
That's a typical Russian tactics. They say one thing and do another thing. It's very hard to believe that that's the case for any person who lives in democracy, because simply the nature of our culture, of our norms, is that we do not so blatantly lie. We do not say that we're going to be good humans, and then tomorrow we commit war crimes, we kill children, rape women, and then pretend we didn't do it and force everyone to prove it. And if they prove it, we pivot and accuse the others. So this is a very mafia-like or sort of very criminal-like tactic, and simply people in democracies are not used to this. They do not expect, it goes against our nature to expect that kind of tactics from a state, but that's what Russia does. What's next for the international law? Well, it's impossible to make Russia accountable, frankly, if we are honest to ourselves, unless it loses. Is it possible for Russia to lose? It looks not at the moment with the US position. That's not possible. And maybe even with the US support, it is not possible at the moment. So we will have to live in the world where the best outcome for us is to contain Russia. And we have to be very open-minded and very realistic about the threat Russia presents and work together on that.
The attack we've seen, the attack on Ukraine, is this a telling sign of what's to come in the possible spring offensive? What are Ukraine's expectations when it comes to Russia's movements in weeks to come?
Yes, an excellent question. There is a fear of a spring offensive, a major offensive. Actually, Russia is on offense right now. And continues to take some of the, make some advances, but they're very gradual. The question is whether there will be an escalation and maybe Russia will enter in different areas of Ukraine, in Sumy, for example, or Chernihiv. I don't think that's likely, but purely hypothetical, that is possible. It will be a clear sign to the world and specifically to the new administration in the United States that Russia is not serious and is not willing to move towards ceasefire. So the question is then that what the US will have to do. The US will either be able to choose to support Ukraine and Europe in containing Russia, which I think is unlikely at the moment, or lose kind of interest in the deal, and I think it will be up to Europe to then deal with the security situation in the East.
Earlier today, we've learned about the Ukrainian military capturing 2 Chinese citizens who were fighting on the Russian side. Meanwhile, in March, China offered to be a part of the coalition of the willing in what could be potential peacekeeping forces in the future. From the Ukrainian perspective, do you think that China could be trusted?
Well, that's an excellent question. I do not want to say that China cannot be trusted, but it's also true that a majority of supplies for defense industry in Russia came from China. The Kyiv School of Economics has recently posted a report that up to 76% of inputs came from China. So China is extremely important partner for enabling Russia to continue its war. So can China be trusted? I think everyone has its own answer to that question. I think we have to be very, very careful, but we also have to be open-minded given the dynamics between the US and China. Now, this development of 2 soldiers, Chinese soldiers, captured on the territory of Ukraine, not like North Korea in Kursk, on Russian territory, but on the territory of Ukraine. So that's a very serious, threatening sign. If these guys there are by some kind of, secret agreement between China and Russia, that basically means that China has put its troops on the territory of Ukraine. I really hope that's not the case. It's too early to say, but we should be very watchful to see if China entered the war in some form.
Definitely, this is something to be tracked in the future, in the days and weeks to come. Another important event is going to take place this week. We know that Ukraine delegation is set to travel to the U.S. to discuss the mineral deal. As we read in Yulia Sviridenko's post on X, she's first Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Economy of Ukraine, she said, I quote, "We aim to align on project selection, legal frameworks, and long-term investment mechanisms." What is Ukraine going to agree to in order to make this deal happen? And when could we expect this deal to be signed?
One point of disagreement is whether Ukraine has to pay back to the United States the amount of support that has already been provided by the previous administration. The Ukrainian position, that is not possible, that is repatriations, and we should not be doing that. It's extremely unfair, and it's also against the law and agreements. Whereas the US position has to be that we have sacrificed so much and have given so much support to Ukraine, we have to get something back. Ukrainian position with respect to that is, yes, let's invest together and let's earn together in the future. And so that's a negotiation which is happening. I've seen some of the versions of the deal in the earlier round of negotiations, and they've been going back and forth. It looks like there are very reasonable people on both sides, but there are also people within the administration or negotiation teams who are working on derailing the deal. There are also people who want to get the best deal possible for the United States. So it's a lot of different interests coalescing together. And I think it might be difficult to achieve that deal immediately, but I hope it will be possible.
Do you think that this deal is going to threaten Ukraine's future integration with the EU? Because that was one of the premises of Ukraine not wanting to sign that deal.
Well, so one of the versions indeed violated, it required the right of first, basically choice, the right of refusal, the right of the first refusal for the United States on all projects, even those projects which are conditionality projects in the already existing agreements. And that was a very maximalist demand, completely ignoring the existing arrangements and the future integration needs of Ukraine. But I believe that will be worked out.
Thank you so much, Tymofiy Mylovanov, former Ukrainian economy minister. Pleasure to have you on the program. And so this would be all for now here on World News Tonight, but please do stay tuned. We're back in just a moment with more news and features, and we'll see you there.